disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Take a look at this. This is coming of Blender News. They did this breakdown video about Jeffrey Epstein. And while we know that America is pretty silent about this for obvious reasons, I mean, it's not hard to figure out that Donald Trump is covering up the story either for the fact that maybe he's on that list or maybe he's just covering up for his donor buddies. But we know that the Democrats, Republicans, the entire state of America is complicit to this cover-up. And we know that this far goes beyond just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, that this is not just an American crime. This is an international scandal. And it gets more and more darker the more people look at this. And that is why they're trying to do everything to distract you from this and keep you quiet. But we know from places like Whitney Webb in her publication, One Nation Under Blackmail, that there's a reason behind this cover-up. So here's Blender News reporting about this. And the thing I find just so shocking about the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation is not only America just falling short on its promises of releasing the files, but there's not a word of mention to any other country about this. You would think even here in Canada, being so anti-Trump in its rhetoric, you would think that there would be a large amount of people, more and more people in Canada being angry about not releasing the Epstein files, especially if the direction is to be more anti-Trump. You would think there'd be connection with that. But Canadians just don't seem to be concerned about this. I wonder why that is, but here's what Blender News says.
The official story is that Jeffrey Epstein was a disgraced financier who used his wealth to engage in disturbing crimes involving minors. The so-called conspiracy theory is that he ran an exploitation network for the rich and powerful. But what if both of those only scratched the surface? What if Epstein was actually part of something much bigger, connected to arms deals, intelligence work, and global financial operations most people never hear about? Before his name was tied to scandal, Epstein was already moving in circles of immense power. One of his early mentors was Sir Douglas Leese, a British dealmaker with deep connections to Saudi royalty and the covert weapons pipeline behind the Iran-Contra affair. Leese, who helped broker multi-billion-dollar arms agreements, allegedly introduced Epstein to Stephen Hoffenberg, a financier later convicted in one of the largest fraud cases in U.S. history. Leese once called Epstein a genius with no moral compass. Hoffenberg hired him at Towers Financial, gave him a $2 million loan, and later said Epstein was the architect behind the whole scheme. Then there's Anand Khashoggi, a high-profile Saudi arms broker who is among Epstein's first known clients. Khashoggi helped fund off-the-books weapons transfers into conflict zones, like the Iran-Contra scandal, bypassing official channels and stoking chaos in Central America. These weren't just wealthy men with checkered pasts, they were key players in the underworld of geopolitics. So here's the takeaway. Epstein wasn't just a predator, he was most likely a facilitator, the kind of guy governments use when they need something done off the books. Someone who can move money, hide it, and make it show up clean on the other side of the world. His skills, connections, and lack of scruples made him useful, and if someone became a liability, well then a camera or compromising setup could keep them quiet. What if Epstein's real role wasn't just running a network for elite indulgence, but acting as a critical gear in the machinery of Western covert power? A man who operated in the shadows for those who couldn't afford to be seen in the light.
So that is disturbing. That is disturbing. That is the big picture of this entire scandal and why people should not be silent about this. It's because this is a global network. This is not just Jeffrey Epstein and certain predators that just want to exploit children. This is about an entire global network that entices geopolitics, banking systems, policy making, everything you can imagine in the Western Hemisphere. And this is the diabolical control that has over the ruling class. And if you read publications like Whitney Webb, One Nation Under Blackmail, I can't recommend the book more enough on how amazing it is to see this network that dates back decades and decades prior to Jeffrey Epstein, and how they've used the ability of trafficking and predators and fans of the playground, if you will, to facilitate these awful rulings over the ruling class, and how they blackmail and extort people to do specific demands. Like you saw there, the Iran-Contra. They were able to bypass legislators and pass on the biggest weapons dealing to people involved in this serious scandal, a geopolitical scandal. So it's the more you look into this, the more sinister it gets, and the more that people should be alarmed and freaked out by this. And how this is not just an American crime, and that's why we should just ignore it. This involves so many key figures and key players from all around the globe that it's surprising to me that not enough people are making mention about this. We obviously see more and more people in America because they were told by Donald Trump, they were told by Kash Patel, they were told by Dan Bongino, they were told by the entire Trump administration that they promised there was going to be some sort of revelation, that they were going to reveal these files. Obviously, that never came to be because they're part of the situation. They're part of this cover-up. Whether Trump's on the list or not is still speculative. But I'm even more shocked that as a Canadian, nothing here is being addressed about this. Well, there's a bit of a backstory to this. So, the Western Standard, for example, pointed this out. British press, again, associate Mark Carney with convicted child blank trafficking of Ghislaine Maxwell. So, we know that the Carneys are very familiar with Ghislaine Maxwell and the Maxwell family. Because, let's not forget, Mark Carney, before becoming Prime Minister, was the governor of the Bank of England. So he spent a lot of time in the UK. His wife, Diana Fox, grew up in England and actually went to the same schools as Ghislaine Maxwell. And here, I asked Grok this to break down some of the details. And I asked, did Diana Fox have specific relation with Ghislaine Maxwell and the Maxwell family? And it says, well, there's no definite evidence that Diana Fox Carney knew Ghislaine Maxwell or her father, Robert Maxwell, during her childhood. However, there are some connections worth noting. Diana Fox Carney, born in 1965, grew up in a wealthy English family and attended Oxford High School for girls, as did her sister, Tanya Fox, who later married Robin Kaiser, 3rd Baron Rotherwick. Ghislaine Maxwell, born in 1961, also attended the same high school before moving to other schools, including Headington Girls' School and Marlborough College. While their time at Oxford High School may have overlapped briefly, given the 4-year age difference, there is no direct evidence confirming that they knew each other's children. But a stronger connection exists with Diana's sister, Tanya. According to reports, Tanya was the school friend of Ghislaine Maxwell through the specific school is not always clarified. This friendship reportedly brought Ghislaine Maxwell to the social circle of the Rotherwick family, as Tanya was married to Lord Rotherwick, who hosted the Wilderness Music Festival at Cornbury Park, where Ghislaine was a frequent guest. Photos from 2013 show Diana Fox Carney and her husband, Mark Carney, with Ghislaine Maxwell at this festival, suggesting a social connection in adulthood through Tanya's ties. However, this does not confirm any childhood acquaintance between Diana and Ghislaine. As for Robert Maxwell, there is no evidence suggesting Diana knew him during childhood. Robert Maxwell is a predominant figure in Oxford, where Diana grew up, and his family lived at Headington Hill Hall. However, no records or reports indicate a direct connection between Diana's family and Robert Maxwell during her years. In summary, while Diana Fox Carney and Ghislaine Maxwell may have attended the same school briefly and were later linked through social media events via Diana's sister, there is no conclusive evidence that Diana knew Ghislaine Maxwell or Robert Maxwell as a child. Any connection appears to be later in life and indirect primarily through Tanya's social ties. So, Grok is saying that there's not much of a connection of childhood because of the age difference. But what it also suggests is because Diana's sister married into a wealthy, elite British family, that wealthy, elite British family, the Rotherwick, had associations with the Maxwell family, that's what started the connection. So they went to the same school, we know that. But because Diana Fox was part of a wealthy British elite family that married another wealthy elite family that had ties to the Maxwell family, that's how Diana Fox Carney and her husband Mark Carney became very close companions with Ghislaine Maxwell and knew about Jeffrey Epstein. So that's one of the reasons why the Canadian leadership, why the Liberal Party, and why the Canadian government's kind of stayed quiet about this. You would think that they would jump on board if they knew that Trump was on this list, and if anything was going to take down Trump, you would think they'd be on board with this. But no, because this would expose their connections. Or how about this? Remember this? Remember Justin Trudeau had associations with P. Diddy? And it says a lot of X about P. Diddy. This is from Albertian. Reminder, Justin Trudeau signed a multi-million-dollar NDA, that's a non-disclosure agreement, to cover up sexual relations with a minor. So while he was a teacher in BC, before he became into politics, while he was a teacher, there was assault charges on Justin Trudeau that this young woman here, that's the one that's highlighted here, this young woman was assaulted by Justin Trudeau and then signed a multi-million-dollar non-disclosure agreement to stay silent. Why? Because Justin Trudeau is part of a political dynasty family. And if word got out that Justin Trudeau was convicted of relations with a minor, I doubt he'd become prime minister. I doubt he'd be stepped into politics so quickly. And people would hesitate on electing him. But they kept it under the dark. They kept it under the wraps. They told people to shut up about this, that it's a conspiracy. And he became prime minister for 10 years. How about this? Canada Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's man-crazy mom, Margaret Sinclair, who allegedly had an affair with Cuban leader Fidel Castro. Remember, everyone was talking about this? Well, there's more. Because while everyone was talking about the man-crazy mother, Margaret Trudeau, husband, former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who allegedly abused MK Ultra sex trafficked children like Enrique Lucas, unabashedly shared her blank life. So, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and this is made public because of Enrique Lucas, who wrote books about this, about being a survivor. It is well documented that Pierre Elliott Trudeau and the Rockefellers made frequent trips to European countries and had relations with trafficked minors. This is documented. This is well documented. It's not a conspiracy that they have confirmed this, but they kept it under the wraps for people to know about this because, again, that's going to reflect Justin Trudeau. That's going to affect his political career, and people will be hesitant. If they knew about this, people will be more hesitant to elect him prime minister for 10 years. Or how about even just recently? This is why I think more and more of Canada being silent and complicit about this. This is from the CBC. Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes in Canada, and anyone can be a target. That's the CBC even stating that. That's the state media being paid by the Canadian government. They are even admitting that human trafficking in Canada is one of the worst growing crimes in the country. They can't even hide this. And they did a documentary about this. This is from CBC Docs. Proving that this growing crime spree of trafficking, of drug smuggling, of fans of the playground is coming at an alarming rate. And here's just some articles to back that up. CBS News, 13 men, including an American, arrested at a Canadian hotel and charged with luring minors for blank abuse. And I can't even say the exact words because we're going to be on YouTube. But 13 people, including an American, were luring minors into a hotel room. Part of this network. Canadian police arrest. Charge over 100 in child exploitation operation. That's from March of this year. That's from Global News. Disturbing details in BC child trafficking case. A man was arrested in Vancouver as plead guilty to trafficking a 12-year-old BC girl. Advocates say the system is failing victims. So, this is what gives me grave concern about why they're keeping quiet about this. It's not because, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not because, oh, it's just Jeffrey Epstein and his creepy buddies. It's because there is a huge network of this kind of immoral, inhumane trafficking of minors that still goes on to this day, involving predominant people. And the reason that even for someone like Donald Trump, who explicitly said during his campaign that he was going to release the Epstein documents, he was going to have his full campaign dedicated to releasing the Epstein files and the JFK files and being transparent to the American public. That is never going to happen. That's never going to happen. Why? Because Donald Trump's obviously covering for his buddies, and maybe he's on the list. We don't know for sure. But it's never going to happen because of how large and how powerful this crime syndicate is. And if you look at publications like Whitney Webb, if you look at people that have researched this topic for many, many years, you would know how large scale this is, how this operation is used as a powerful pretext to everything that goes on in the Western world. You know, why we do the warfares that we do, why we enact these heinous policies against our own people. It's all because of blackmail. It's all because of exploitation. We not only exploit the minors and the victims involved in this, but we're also exploiting politicians and legislators who have the power to enforce these laws, done by even more creeper powerful people that don't get mentioned. You never see them in public. And these are the sinister people that truly run the world. It really is like a giant mafia. It really is like a giant mafia. Except without, Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci with his quirks. It's a sinister, evil mafia that truly does run the world. And those are the people that want to keep this going. That want you to stay quiet. That want to continue exploiting the population for their own benefit of overpowering people that you think are the most powerful. You think that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg are the most powerful individuals? They don't come to comparison. They don't come to comparison with families like the Rothschilds. If you know anything about them, you know how sinister they are. There's, as I was reading Whitney Webb's book, the Brothman family. They were one of the biggest mafias in Canada that I don't think people are aware of. They're the ones that started off selling liquor during the Prohibition era and became this huge criminal syndicate in Canada. They're also involved in this. So it really is just sickening and disgusting that this goes on. And it's even right in front of our noses. Like, it's very clear as day when you see all these reports, when you see the numerous times that you see convictions of networking and trafficking and just the constant exploitation. You could see it. Even when Donald Trump goes on camera and tries to pander away from people being concerned about Jeffrey Epstein by saying it's a Democrat hoax. You could see the guilt behind him. You could see that he's doing this intentionally to cover up something. So ultimately, that's why America stayed silent about this. Now we know that Canada stayed silent about this because we have individuals that are part of this network. We know why the UK is staying silent about this. I mean, Prince Andrew is on that list. Royal families are on that list. Big British elite families are tied to this network. But it's amazing that no other country, not even the UN, not even the ICC, gives a damn about this. And this is the biggest international crime syndicate in history. You would think they'd be concerned about this. You would think. But in order for that to be revealed, that means the entire political, powerful structure that has built up these powerful, corrupt individuals and gave them the power, gave them the influence for such a long time, that means it's going to crumble. And that's why they want to keep it as minimal and silent as possible. But luckily, thanks to individuals, thanks to people that have not been silent about this and are willing to actually stick their neck out for the importance of this story and are willing to actually document and report as new information is coming, that there is going to be some transparency, because there is thousands upon thousands of victims that are affected by this all around the world. Look at what happened with Virginia Giuffre, who went by Virginia Roberts before she was married. Look what happened to Aniki Lucas, who wrote publications about being a survivor, is now going out there on a podcast and telling people that you don't have to suffer. You're not alone. Look at all the thousands and thousands of missing children that they still have not reported on. That no investigation's been done. Thousands and thousands of missing children go unreported. This is why it's such a big deal. And this is why someone like me is not going to be silent about this. Because what if it's your kids? What if it's me? What if it's anybody? As even the CBC said, this human trafficking and smuggling network affects everybody. So why is nothing being done about this? Why is nothing being reported on this? Because the people that are the most powerful, influential, and responsible for this are part of this network in one way or another. Whether they had direct ties to Jeffrey Epstein, whether they are predators themselves, or whether they're covering up for the donors who are part of that network also. It's a sick, giant, ghoulish, insane, psychopathic cult. This mafia that truly controls us. And as Whitney Webb's book points out, it really is one nation under blackmail. It's the global power elite using this as influence to gain control of powerful figures who then can gain control of mass populations. That's really how the world operates, folks. It's not pretty. I can't make a rainbow out of it. It's really sick and disgusting. But we can do our part and actually keep harping on this, make sure that this never dies down, and keep mentioning about Jeffrey Epstein and finding out the truth and bringing light, not only just for our sake, for our understanding, but for the justice of the victims that suffered, because they're the ones that are affected the most by this cover-up.